You're listening to Biztainment Weekly, with host Scott Janney, presented by Magazine Jukebox.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. This was a great show. We got Hunter Walsh from the 757 Startup Studios. I consider him a friend. I've been able to talk to him and lean on him, and he's given me so much great advice and really been able to connect me with great people. And so he talks a lot about what's going on in the community, what's going on with the startup studios, and they also have an opening right now for more or new founders to come in as they're getting ready to close out this last series for founders, and it gives them an opportunity to get their business out there. So it's really, really exciting, and I definitely encourage you to tune in and reach out to Hunter, reach out to the 757 Startup Studios, especially if you're maybe in business, or maybe you can help founders or help startups, or maybe you are wanting to start up a company. But anyways, thanks so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe. It's really important that you do that. Click like, engage, share us with people. Don't let us be a stranger. And also feel free to shoot us a message to let us know how we're doing. So thank you very much. Enjoy the show. All right. Hey, everyone. I am super excited. Today we have Hunter Walsh in the house from the 757 Startup Studios. Thank you, Hunter, for being here.
Happy to be here, Scott.
Super excited to talk to you. But first, I like to always roll into what I call my LinkedIn moment. Or moments, and in this case, we're going to talk. I have three of them, so I got them. They're pretty simple, but there's a guy that I follow. His name's Patrick Bet David, and that's Patrick Bet Bet-David. And I'm a father. I think everybody knows that. If you don't know it, then clearly you're not paying attention to me, because I like to post about my children all the time. But he said, "Happy birthday, Dylan. Your energy hasn't changed from your first birthday to your 9th, except your approach to eating your birthday cake has slightly changed. Love you, kid." Hey, just want to put a happy birthday out there to Dylan. That's exciting. Always love to see children grow and be happy. That's the most important thing. So anyways, and then also I'm trying to talk to Patrick Bet David one day. So that's why I'm throwing this out there. Mr. Bet David, reach out. Okay. All right, next one. Casey Crawford over at Movement Mortgage. I don't know have you ever met Casey? I don't know if you have. He's pretty big in this area. Movement Mortgage is huge in this area. But he said, "Join me in welcoming Shelly Smith as the newest member of our team. Shelly brings extensive expertise from her prior roles at Fortune 500 companies to Movement as our new Chief People Officer." I wanted to bring this out because my wife is Magazine Jukebox's Chief People Officer. And that's not a very well-known position, but it's definitely a needed position. And Casey wrote, "We anticipate our human resources, compensation, and benefits teams to thrive under her leadership and direction." Congratulations, Shelly. Congratulations to Movement Mortgage. I'm very, very excited for you guys. And Casey, come on, man. Let's get you on the show. He's a former NFL player. I don't know if you knew that. So, and if I'm wrong, then, well, it's on the air now. So. Okay, and then the last one, this one's also very exciting. Jordan Decker over there, he's the Vice President, Demand Generations at Tebra. I don't know if you've watched the market, but I think they just launched an IPO, and they're just doing huge things, or they landed a huge series around. But they put on there, and I always like to share when there's positions out there, because not everybody's on LinkedIn, so they don't get to see all these things. But we're looking for a program manager to join Brian and his team over here at Tebra, Tebra, for those of you who are listening or watching. As members of the program team, this role focuses specifically on our outbound marketing campaigns. I shouldn't say that. Maybe Aaron, our producer, is going to leave. I'm just kidding. Better not. You'll be working closely with our sales leaders to identify target audiences, build campaign enablement, resources, yada, yada, yada. Super exciting. Go check them out. Tebra, Tebra. And Jordan, you're doing great things. Anyways, that wraps up our LinkedIn moments. Just super positive, great things. But now it's time for the most important part of the show. And that's you, Hunter. You're the most important part of this show. So, hey, man, welcome. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Yeah? How are things over there at the 757 Startup Studios?
This is our kind of time to shine, as I often have been. That's been the easiest way to describe it. And then the follow-up question is, well, what do you mean when you say that? And we got all three of our organizations are rocking and rolling in terms of in-person events, planning, getting that going. We have the Angels are vetting their last and final investment cycle of the year. 757 Accelerate cohort is in action almost at that, I guess, quarter mark, actually. Hard to believe that we're already almost nearly almost halfway complete. Startup Studios, applications open for that. We're working with some really cool stuff behind the scenes as well. You guys may have heard that Pharrell and his team are doing this thing called the Mighty Dream Forum, November 1st through 3rd in downtown Norfolk. Assembly, where Startup Studios, we are co-located at 400 Granby Street, is going to be one of the hubs of that. So tons of enthusiasm and excitement, bringing folks from all over the world into the 757 and downtown Norfolk to connect, knowledge share, build, and ultimately move the needle just a little bit more forward in a positive direction. So all that on top of the day job, which is making sure that our 30 early stage growth-minded founders have all of the resources that they need to help validate and scale their ideas as fast as possible. So might be shorter to share what we're not doing.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't even know how you guys handle it all, but I do know that you guys have an incredible team. You work with some incredible people. And so full transparency to our listeners and our viewers, I was actually part of the 757 Startup Studios with Magazine Jukebox.
OG class.
I'm one of the OGs. That's right. I think I didn't coin OG. I get that. But I think I coined OG in that group, just for the record. So anybody says anything different, then come talk to me. But yeah, so I had a fantastic experience there. And anyone who is starting up an idea or starting up a company and they're trying to figure out, will this thing have legs? This is a great opportunity for them to get plugged into the ecosystem. Now, I want to put this out there because not everybody understands this, but you don't have to live in 757 necessarily. Although I know you want everybody from the 757, I get that. But you don't have to necessarily live here to be a part of the 757 studios as long as you can put some commitment to being there in person, correct?
That is correct. So we're a startup ourselves, as we tell folks all the time. So just like any early stage startup or entrepreneur, we're continuing to ask the questions to make sure that our value proposition aligns with the needs of the founders. So with that, we definitely have noticed it is a little bit easier if you live within about an hour's drive of the 23510 zip code, just because that a part of the magic of the program is being in person in a community that lifts you up with people tackling similar problems at stages. But always happy to have a conversation and figure out how we can make it work if where you live maybe doesn't have access to the network of resources that we do have.
Yeah. So, and I know that this is all about you, so I'm not going to just put my name out there. But those who follow me especially on LinkedIn, that's where I'm most active on. But with LinkedIn, I just put out a blog, and it's interesting. Part of my blog it says how motorcyclists are geared to be founders or startup founders. And I put these analogies together. But one of the ones that I talked about in there is that motorcycle enthusiast, it's always best to be surrounded by other motorcycle enthusiasts. And I said, and that's the same thing in the startup world. And that's exactly what you guys offer, which is you allow other startups to be around other startups who can all understand what they're going through. And that could be what they're going through from a technological component, from a raising capital component, to even a marriage component. Like how do you manage and balance this while being married or having children? And there's others that you can lean on inside that studio and talk to. And some are greater than others, but you build those relationships, and it's that whole giver's gain kind of mentality. So if you put more into it, you're going to get more out of it. And it was just such a great experience, and I'm always grateful. I come from a very humble and grateful heart for the opportunity there. And so we'll make sure that we put all the plugs and the links and everything. So. For those of you who are listening or viewing this, just go. First of all, make sure you subscribe. But we'll put the links on there directly to your guys' applications and apply. So, and if they give you a hard time about getting in, you just come see me. I'll take care of it. I'm just kidding. So, okay, Hunter, I am super excited about having you here because you and I've been talking to you for months about getting you on the show, and you keep telling me like, well, I'm not sure can bring something to show, but I don't think you realize how valuable you are. And I just want to make sure that my listeners and viewers and the rest of the group realize, you are invaluable when it comes to the 757 Startup Studios. When people think that group, they're thinking you. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you, and I appreciate sometimes you being a sounding board. I'm pretty sure you didn't go to school for counseling, so I'm not. Maybe you did. I don't. But it's. I'm sure that you have to put on a lot of different hats there. So can you share like some of those hats that you do? Let's start with the ones that you really enjoy wearing, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about the ones that you don't necessarily enjoy wearing. But that's what you're there for. You're there to help founders.
Absolutely. Really appreciate that. And it is an incredible opportunity to wear many different hats every single day for somebody that typically does not physically sport a hat in general as a part of my outfit and
you should.
And ensemble.
I always wear a hat.
Have you seen my head?
Yeah, but I have a big head too, so it's all right.
My why and what really motivates me when I wake up every morning is the opportunity to help people. And
Awesome.
The studios is a unique opportunity to do just that. And that definitely is my driver. That fills my cup up. And as you mentioned, that we are in the unique position to be able to help people holistically in a wide variety of ways. That across the CoLab network of resources we lead with, we're people and humans before we're entrepreneurs and founders. So it's so important and paramount really to us, and a key differentiator from the CoLab model to some other accelerators out there, that we really want to genuinely get to know you, what motivates you, because you can have the greatest idea in the world, be a successful entrepreneur, but if your home life or you have things going on in your personal world isn't whole, you're never going to reach the surface and realize the full potential of that startup idea. So kind of piggybacking off of your point that, it is a lot of kind of non-related, nothing directly related to your startup or idea, but actually just taking the time to listen and care. And I think that kind of tying things together, being co-located in Assembly, an innovation campus full of innovators, industry disruptors, people challenging the status quo, it builds that community. And research has shown and that we've seen that entrepreneur and founder life is really lonely sometimes.
Sure is, yep.
And if you don't have those people that can pick you up if you've had an inspirational week or few months, or celebrate wins with you, it feels like you're doing this alone.
Yeah.
And it's nearly impossible.
Well, I mentioned to a lot of founders and business owners too is the valley after a mountain, and people forget that you're going to have mountains, that you're going to achieve these great peaks in business, and it's really exciting. But to sustain that mountain or that peak drive it's not rational. It's not realistic, and so you're going to come down the valley, and naturally, just like if you ran a marathon, right? What happens after you ran that marathon? You're exhausted, and that exhaustion can almost feel like a sense of like, I don't want to say depression. That may not be the right word, but you feel down, or like, hey, what did I do so well last week? And now I'm in this valley where I'm not doing as well. But the truth is that you are doing well. You just gotta look at it linear, and you gotta look at like over a course of time how far you've come. And it's funny when I launched Magazine Jukebox, I was first initially interviewed by Ian Fraser over the cohort 7x7 Accelerate. Thank you. And so Ian initially interviewed me, and then we got in. I think you were hired pretty quick after that. It wasn't very long, and I just hit it off with you immediately. But you had so much stuff that you had to get caught up to snuff on, but it was just refreshing to be able to have someone in that space that you could talk to, and then also that you can help introduce other founders to potential people. Like you've done a great job at introducing me some wonderful people, and sometimes when I'm needing help, you have no problem like sending me over an email and saying, hey, maybe reach out to this person. In fact, recently we brought on Liz Dorr, who's over at the 7x7 Startup Studios right now, I think, and we brought her on as our fractional CFO, and that was based on your connection. You built that, or you brought that relationship to us, and she's helping us with raising capital. In fact, she's very, very well known in the community for doing that. And so I mean, that's the 7x7 Startup Studios. They're like the foundation, right? So, and when you think about building a house, if you don't get that foundation right, then the building's not going to build. So you get this opportunity, and I want to emphasize opportunity, because just because you get in the 7x7 Studios doesn't guarantee you any next step. Like, you've got to still earn every single next step. And so I remember sitting there, and we launched our website, and everybody thought that was cool. And then I met with Jared in the Startup Studios, and he's in the same building at Assembly. And so he helped me create this amazing commercial, which got us, a ton of notice. And then I remember coming, like, you were one of the first people I came to, and I was like, hey, we just landed this. And you get really excited to share those stories, and it's nice to also have a sounding board where you can share your highs, right? Because like you were just saying, like, what's the point of being at the top if you're by yourself, right? Like you want to bring people with you, and that's really what you guys do. Okay, so that being said, got some other questions for you. Hunter, I haven't even asked this, and where do you come from? Like, where are you from? The Hampton Roads area?
I am born and bred and raised in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So,
and your family's in farming, or?
My mom's side of the family grew up and is from northeastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, geographically speaking. And I was the oldest of the 6th-generation farmer in my family. So
awesome.
We could trace back to 1850, so
wow.
mid-1800s or so. And that was predominantly in the early days, kind of hobby farming, feeding your neighbors, etc., when
right.
kind of things used to be very different, and you didn't have a Walmart in every block or a 5-minute drive from where folks live, and it's kind of morphed and evolved from what it was.
And that's what they where that's old, that old saying where it takes a tribe, to raise a family, and that's what they did. Like, someone, in the farm may specialize in corn, or maybe weed or something like that, and then you have another person who specializes in digging wells and can help funnel out the water, and so it's very much a community, and that kind of falls back to 7x7 Studios. You're building this community. So what are some of, and thank you for sharing that, by the way. But what are some of the things that you see that are really needed for founders right now? Like, where's the biggest bottleneck or the biggest hurdle that founders have to overcome, and what advice would you give to those founders on answering some of those? So I'm putting you on the spot here.
Really, two things that we've noticed and are tracking and already are working with some creative solutions to proactively address those. First and foremost is kind of unrealistic or mismanaged expectations up front. So that mental mindset that there's a lot of founders that come through us, whether they're a part of the studio's founder community or not, that have this notion that they can go from idea to generating a livable wage in a matter of a few months' time, all by themselves, without a team, without a co-founder. And while that can happen, those are kind of the exceptions, not the rules. So that takes a lot of unpacking. Once somebody's kind of ingrained in their head and thinks it's the gospel, it's hard to retrain and unpack that. So that's one. And then also just the core foundational pieces, whether that be legal, accounting, financial literacy, that it varies there. But a lot of people don't understand the importance of, for example, how credit can impact your access to capital moving forward. And that if you aren't paying your credit card on time and those are going delinquent, it's going to be an exponentially long process and journey to repair that there. So we're working with some creative ways to kind of streamline and standardize some curriculum and learning modules, learn as you go, so that everyone has that, like you were saying, the strong foundational pieces, to use an analogy, like a sports team, that our goal that many founders we we only have the opportunity to have a direct impact on for 6 months. And that we want at the end of that 6 months that they have more tools in their tool chest, a community, resources to lean on, so they know the next idea they have or what steps they need to work to be able to ultimately accelerate and do more faster.
Wow. So I really like that you mentioned this, financial literacy. I know Florida just recently passed a law that you have to actually pass a financial literacy course in order to graduate high school, which I heard that there's something like that in Virginia too. So I don't know. I don't know the exacts on that, but I think it's great that people understand that. Years and years ago, I worked when I was 18. I worked for Radio Shack and or the Shack of Radios, as I've always said. And I remember we would have young guys come in there. This is back in Sprint and Verizon duking it out, and Sprint rolled out this $125 deposit no matter what your credit is. And Verizon was like, nope, we want premium people only, premium credit only. And so we'll jack up a deposit up to $4,000 on a cell phone. Like, it was incredible. So I remember I would have a lot of sailors coming in because they come, in Norfolk, we're the largest Navy base in the world, and they would, when they get out of A school or C school, then they would, come over, and we were the first drop off of freedom for them after training, and they first thing they wanted to do was get a cell phone. They wanted to be able to connect with their family and whatnot, and I remember I would always say, okay, well, we'd always start at Verizon because they gave us the best spiffs or the best, commission. And I would just be like, oh, Verizon's the best network ever. You just want to be with them, and they're everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And then we get over and start ringing them out and run their credit, and all of a sudden, boom, here's this 19-year-old with a $4,000 deductible or a deposit. And that tells us a story that they didn't pay their bill. It's like, how can you be 19 and not already ruining your credit? It's insane. And so and those with no credit were getting like $500, deposits, which was more manageable. The craziest thing was when you see someone like fork out $4,000 for a deposit. I just couldn't believe that. But that whole entire time I was like bashing, Sprint at the time, and I was like, oh, you don't want them. Their network's horrible, garbage. And then they pull a $4,000 deductible or a deposit. And I keep saying deductible. For those who know me, my past world is insurance, so that's why I keep saying it. But they pull this, and then I got to backtrack and say, oh, well, let's go over to Sprint. It's only $125. But you just told me it's a horrible network. Yeah, but it's $125 deposit, so that's what you get, And so I learned quickly, to treat both companies mutual respect and not put one down or the other. But my point in that is that we when I was working there, and these young kids, and I say young, and you have all ages, and I think that's also a myth too. If you're 45 years old, 55, 65 years old, you're still equally as welcomed into the studios as somebody who's 18 years old. So I don't want to dismiss anyone especially based on age, but the credit component is important. But it brings me to this next point. I don't even know if you know this, but my company's raising capital. We were in our what is called the seed bridge round. We did initial seed round with Magazine Jukebox, and I was always surprised that investors would invest in me, but they never ran a credit check and they never ran a background check. And that just was mind-blowing to me. Now, when you get to accredited investors, or not credit, institutional investors, that changes. They have the resources and the capital to be able to do those background checks, and they finally. I remember VIPC up in DC. They were one of our initial investors, and I'm trying to remember who it was, but Marco, I think, was. And he says, now I just want to let you know we have to do a background check. Is there anything on there? And I was like, no, please do. Thank you. Because I'm like, finally, someone is checking on this stuff. Anyway, so I'm totally long-winded there. I apologize. But I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing that. And you're absolutely correct. People need to understand if you want to get access to capital, you've got to keep your nose clean, so to speak, and make sure that you or at least have a good explanation, right? You need to have a good reason for, but doesn't that kind of go against somewhat of the narrative that you see from investors right now, where they're like, they want you dependent on credit card, and they want you like broke basically to raise money, because they want you 155% in on your company. And how dare you if you have another company? I'm speaking from experience.
I think every investor is going to be different, and
Sure.
from our mentality and what we strive to do is to share knowledge and empower people with things that can help them personally and professionally. So regardless, because at the startup studios level, we're dealing with oftentimes first-time entrepreneurs that just have an idea, that didn't go to school, period, much less have an MBA or something like that. So, and that varies, but generally speaking. So our goal to level the playing field, give everyone access to this knowledge, this foundational critical knowledge that they can share with their children, the next generation of their family, realizing that it's much more holistic, and once again leading with the human element and putting that founder first there. And they can also indirectly, that can certainly help them get closer to achieving and realizing some of the longer term goals and outcomes that they're looking to and working hard on for their startup.
Yeah, there's also a big push too that founders should get paid. That there's this big push because they, founders are, they tend to like write themselves out of a living wage, so to speak. And I know that that's also a big push right now too. It's like how can someone start up a company and put in 100 hours a week if they also got to feed themselves, let alone feed their wives or their children or whatever else. So it's definitely a struggle, and that's what the studios helps with. It helps you with that balance and figure that out. And so I just applaud you guys over there. So Hunter, we can go on for hours and hours. I know that we could do that. We do have Pick Your Poison coming up here. If you don't know about that, it's kind of fun. So, but before we do that, are there anything you would like to get out there? I know that we're getting ready to close, or you're getting ready to close on this next cohort coming in. Are you guys going to do another graduation? Is this 1 year from the second group?
This is. So we are having a collab holiday social December 7th, open to the general public, no ticket cost.
On Pearl Harbor Day?
At Assembly.
It's a little depressing. I'm just kidding.
Would love to see as many ecosystem supporters, champions, folks that are looking to learn a little bit more about the studios, the collab, or just experience the type of people and community and what we're doing in person there. Applications are open for anyone that has literally a napkin sketch idea. That can be enough to get you into the studios. It's a selective program, so due to resource constraints, we aren't able to accept everyone in. So the farther along you are certainly positions you for a greater likelihood of being invited in. But those applications are open now through October 10th. So make sure to get those in. For anyone interested, you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions, and I'm happy to make time to connect one-on-one with you.
And you guys still own the 757startups.com or startupstudio.com? I'm just wondering if that's still...
You can check us out, 757startupstudios.org.
That's it.
.com, 757sus.org. or .com, but probably it would be easier to follow us on social media, LinkedIn and Instagram. Alexis Reeder, our community manager that's getting ready to finish up and graduate from Old Dominion, has been controlling and working magic on the Instagram, and that's been really taken off for us there.
She's great, and I love seeing her. It's always nice to have a welcoming face when you walk in. I joke about the .com. Do you remember that? Like when I found them that they were available and I came to you and it was just like, dang. But I was a nice guy. I didn't buy them. Very,
very nice. And quickly, that a lot of people don't realize that we're all nonprofits.
Yep.
So, and with that, like, we're never asking any founder to pay to take advantage of any of the resources that we offer, nor will we ever take equity or ownership in your startup or idea. So with that we definitely run a lean operating budget and try to amplify and have as much collective impact as we can.
And you guys get celebrities in there too. I mean, I call them like for founders and startups and is that you guys had the founder of MapQuest in there a couple of times, and super nice guy, great guy, and he gives great information on being a startup. So how cool is that? You get to meet the founder of MapQuest. So
You just never know who's going to walk into the studio.
or Pharrell. I guess maybe Pharrell will be stopping in. Anyways, that's awesome. Look, man, I appreciate all this information. We're going to put all this on social for you. We'll tag you guys, and we'll make sure that people know how to find you and find 757 Startup Studios, or as we like to say, hashtag 757SUS. And but thank you very much for being on the show. But before I jam out of here, I know Aaron's going to cue up a little bit of romance music here for me. Aaron is, by the way, our producer, for those who don't know, but he doesn't like to come on the show. So, but we have a thing called Pick Your Poison, Hunter. This is what you get if you don't listen to the show. Because if you don't listen, then if you do listen, you would know that this was coming. But Pick Your Poison means you got to pick one or the other. Which would you prefer? Okay? All right. It's PG-13. Don't worry. Okay. Have a permanent itch on the middle of your back for life. Like you're always itching for the rest of your life. Or you have to reveal your first impression of everyone the moment you see them the second time.
I would have to go permanent itch.
Permanent
in the middle
itch.
of my back. That I'm fairly flexible, so I'm able to, as of right now, reach that. So I could just always be staying itching, so it wouldn't be too much of an issue.
That's awesome. I think I would go with the permanent itch too, because I feel like that could be a conversation starter. Be like, hey, I don't know you, but can you scratch my back real quick? Probably wouldn't work very well. Okay. All right. Hey, Hunter. Thank you, sir. This has been great.
Scott.
Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.